Our team was very committed to winning the Line IPO. It's a fun company, and I don't know how much you know about it, but the engagement statistics are very high. Effectively, if you're a young Japanese person, you're using Line. It has a number of kind of furry animal creature characters that are part of the application. And so our team, we went after it gangbusters. Now, I suspect that's only part of it. I think Line was really trying to demonstrate that we're not just a great Japanese company, but we're a great global company, and having that New York Stock Exchange listed, Line listed on the New York Stock Exchange imprimatur is certainly helpful.
Is it any different that it's a dual listing with Tokyo? Was there any mechanics in the background? I guess it priced earlier in the week and then it's trading on Thursday, so there's more of a gap than we're used to here in the States.
Yeah, the mechanics are slightly different, but it's nothing terribly unusual. Dual listings are not unusual at all. They're going to raise around about 2/3 of their proceeds in New York on the New York Stock Exchange, around about 1/3 in Tokyo. Japan does have some, I'll call it unusual, but really just some different rules that meant that the IPO priced on Sunday night, and the first trade will be in New York on Thursday morning.
So what do you think it is about this particular offering that there's so much demand, at least ahead of the offering? There's, they priced at the high end of the range.
Well, you have to go back, I mentioned last August, you have to go back to last August and understand that there have been very few IPOs in the United States or even globally. And so investors are starved for high growth companies, good companies, to be able to add to their portfolio. They're no longer just worried about selling stocks and managing their portfolio and redemptions. They're in the opposite mode of where can I put money to work? So companies with a good growth story, much like Twilio, which IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange 2 weeks ago, are in high demand.
Yeah, they're CEOs here at Brainstorm Tech, and as are many other CEOs of companies that in another era might have already been public, right? And I think that's probably a factor too. You have all these unicorns out there that are staying private, Uber, Lyft, John Zimmer's here. That's probably a factor too, and there just isn't that supply of new companies coming to market for the institutional investor.
If you go back 2 years ago, the sense I got from tech entrepreneurs in particular was that the disadvantages of being public outweighed the advantages, and that seems to have flipped. And perhaps it's because the private financing has dried up to some extent.
Right, valuations have maybe peaked out there. So.
Valuations are down, and that's just a fact, and the amount of capital available has decreased as well. And so people are really more focused on the advantages of the public market, permanent form of capital, a new currency with which to do acquisitions, the additional rigor and discipline that comes along with being a public company. And so that narrative has changed. And so I'm more optimistic now about the IPO market ahead than I've been at any point in the last year and a half.
So I was going to ask you that, do you think Twilio and Line is going to maybe open the floodgates? If not the floodgates, at least open the gates a little bit so we'll have more activity the second half of the year?
I think I'd be careful to say open the floodgates, because that may conjure up, there'll be 50 tech companies coming to market. It's certainly helpful, and if you go back to last August and you look at all the companies that intended to go public in tech and elsewhere that didn't, the number's up above 30. So when they get a good sense, when these companies get a good sense and their advisors get a good sense, yes, the market is open, and you can just look. There's multiple IPOs on the road right now that are doing well. There's IPOs that are planning to go on the road next week. And there have been successful IPOs in the rearview mirror. We had one day in late May with 4 IPOs, in addition to the Twilio IPO more recently. I think when people start to digest that, yes, the markets are open, we're going to have a lot more IPOs overall, including tech. But that isn't to say that all of a sudden you're going to have Uber and Airbnb and all these exciting names go public in the third quarter of this year.